I never thought the person who sang me lullabies as a child would try to steal everything my mother left behind. But there I was, standing in a lawyer's office, holding documents that proved my Aunt Carol had been forging signatures and manipulating legal papers for months. My hands trembled as I read her name scrawled across forms meant to transfer my inheritance directly into her accounts. The woman who had dried my tears at my mother's funeral was the same woman who had started planning her theft before Mom's body was even cold. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. My mother, Susan, raised me alone after my father passed away when I was 7. She worked 2 jobs, a secretary during the day and a waitress on weekends, to make sure I had everything I needed. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that was enough. Mom's sister, Carol, lived 3 blocks away with her husband, Richard, and their 2 kids. Growing up, I spent countless afternoons at their house, believing we were one big, happy family. Carol always seemed generous. She'd buy me birthday presents, take me shopping when Mom was working late, and include me in family vacations. I called her my second mom. Looking back now, I realize her kindness came with strings attached, strings I was too young and trusting to see. When I turned 23, Mom was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months. She lasted 8, fighting every single day with a strength I still can't comprehend. During those final months, Carol was there constantly. She helped with medications, drove Mom to appointments, and stayed overnight when the pain got too severe. I was grateful beyond words. I thought I was watching sisterly love in its purest form. What I didn't know was that Carol was also whispering in Mom's ear about finances, about making things easier for me after she was gone, about letting Carol help manage things since I was so young and overwhelmed. Mom, weak and exhausted, started signing papers Carol brought to her bedside. I assumed they were medical documents. I never imagined my aunt was laying groundwork for the greatest betrayal of my life. Mom passed on a Tuesday morning in April, with me holding one hand and Carol holding the other. At the funeral, Carol sobbed so loudly she had to be escorted out. She gave a eulogy about sisterhood and unconditional love. I hugged her tight, thanking her for being there, for being strong when I couldn't be. She looked me in the eyes and promised, "I'll always take care of you, sweetheart. Your mother would want that." 3 weeks later, the lawyer called. Mr. Patterson, my mother's attorney, asked me to come to his office for the reading of the will. I expected it to be straightforward. Mom had told me years ago that everything would go to me. The house, her savings account, a small life insurance policy. It wasn't much, maybe $200,000 total, but it represented every sacrifice she'd made. I arrived at the office on a gray Thursday morning. Carol was already there, sitting in the waiting room with a sympathetic smile. "I wanted to be here to support you," she said, squeezing my hand. I felt comforted having her there. Then Mr. Patterson dropped the bomb. "I'm afraid there's been some confusion regarding your mother's estate," he said, adjusting his glasses nervously. Several documents were filed in the last month of her life that significantly alter the distribution of assets. According to these papers, the house is to be transferred to Carol Henderson, along with 70% of the liquid assets. You're designated to receive the remaining 30%. The room started spinning. "That's impossible," I stammered. Mom told me everything was coming to me. She said it 100 times. Mr. Patterson looked deeply uncomfortable. "I understand your confusion. Frankly, I'm confused myself. These documents were filed through a different attorney, not through this office. Your mother never mentioned any of these changes to me, but the signatures appear authentic, and they're notarized." I turned to Carol. Her face was a perfect mask of surprise and concern. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Susan must have wanted to make sure I could help take care of you. She probably didn't want to burden you with a house to maintain. You know how thoughtful she was." Something in her voice felt wrong. Too rehearsed. Too prepared. "When exactly were these papers signed?" I asked Mr. Patterson. He shuffled through the documents. "Various dates over the last 6 weeks of your mother's life. The final document was signed 4 days before she passed. For days before she died, Mom couldn't even hold a pen. Her hands shook so badly, I had to help her drink water. There was no way she signed anything that day. But I said nothing. Not yet. I needed time to think, to process, to understand what was happening. If you're finding this story compelling, please consider subscribing to the channel. We share real stories like this one every week, and your support means everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every interaction with Carol during Mom's illness, searching for signs I'd missed. Around 3 in the morning, I remembered something. Mom kept a journal, a habit she'd maintained since I was born. She'd written in it almost every day, right up until the last few weeks. I found the journal in her bedside drawer, a worn leather book filled with her familiar handwriting. My hands shook as I flipped to the final entries. The last entry, dated 2 weeks before she died, made my blood run cold. Carol keeps bringing papers for me to sign. Says they're for medical directives, but I'm so tired I can barely read them. Everything is so blurry now. I trust her. She's my sister. But something feels off. I need to talk to Patterson about the will. Need to make sure everything is clear for my baby. Everything goes to my daughter. Everything. She never got that chance. She deteriorated too quickly. I spent the next week diving deep into every detail. I contacted the notary, whose stamp appeared on the documents, a woman named Helen Grimes. When I called her office and described the papers, she was adamant. I never notarized anything for Susan Wheeler. I know Carol Henderson. She's brought documents before for her business. But I never saw your mother, and I certainly wouldn't notarize documents for someone who wasn't present. That's illegal. My heart hammered. Then how is your stamp on these papers? There was a long pause. Someone would have had to forge my seal. I keep it locked, but Carol had access to my office several times. Oh God. I need to report this immediately. The pieces fell into place. Carol had exploited Mom's weakened state, brought documents disguised as medical forms, obtained a notary seal somehow, and manufactured an entirely false paper trail. She'd planned this meticulously, counting on my grief and trust to keep me from asking questions.
But why?
Carol and Richard seemed financially comfortable. They had a nice house, decent cars. Why steal from her dying sister's daughter? I did more digging. Public records showed that Richard's business had filed for bankruptcy 8 months earlier. They were drowning in debt, over $300,000. They were facing foreclosure. My mother's estate wasn't just attractive to Carol, it was her lifeline. And she'd been willing to rob me blind to save herself. Armed with this information, I went back to Mr. Patterson. I brought Mom's journal, the notary's statement, and documentation of Carol's financial troubles. His face grew darker as he reviewed everything. "This is fraud," he said quietly. "Criminal fraud. We need to contact the authorities immediately." "Not yet," I said, surprising myself with my calm. "I want to confront her first. I want her to know that I know." I called Carol and asked her to meet me at Mom's house, the house she thought she was inheriting. She arrived with that same sympathetic expression, arms open for a hug. I stepped back. "We need to talk about the will," I said coldly. Her smile faltered slightly. "Honey, I know it's confusing, but your mother wanted." "Stop lying." My voice cut through the air like a blade. "I know what you did. I know about the forged signatures, the fake notarization, the documents you disguised as medical forms. I know you exploited my dying mother to steal my inheritance." The color drained from her face. For a moment, she considered maintaining the act. I could see the calculation in her eyes. Then something shifted. Maybe she realized she was caught. Maybe she just didn't care anymore. "You don't understand the pressure we're under," she said, her voice taking on a defensive edge. "Richard's business collapsed. We're losing everything. Your mother had more money than she needed, and you're young. You can build your own life. We needed this." I stared at her, genuinely stunned by the audacity. "So you decided to rob me? Your niece? The daughter of your dying sister?" "I wasn't robbing you. You were still getting 30%. I was just redistributing things more fairly. Susan would have wanted to help me if she'd understood how bad things were." Mom wrote in her journal that she wanted me to have everything. She was confused about what you were making her sign. She trusted you, and you used that trust to commit fraud." Carol's face hardened. "You can't prove anything. Those documents are legally filed. The signatures look real. No one will believe a grieving daughter over official paperwork." I smiled then, and it must have been unsettling because she took a step back. "That's where you're wrong. The notary you supposedly used has given a sworn statement that she never notarized those documents. Mom's journal contradicts everything you claim. And I have documentation showing your financial desperation, clear motive for fraud. Mr. Patterson is filing a formal challenge to the estate distribution. And if you don't withdraw your claim immediately and admit what you did, we're going to the police. This isn't just civil fraud, Carol. This is a criminal matter. You could go to prison." The reality crashed over her. Her face crumpled, and suddenly she was crying, not the performative sobs from the funeral, but genuine, terrified tears. "Please don't do this," she begged. "My kids, Richard, will lose everything." "You were willing to let me lose everything," I said quietly. "You were willing to steal from your orphan niece to save yourself. What did you think would happen when I found out?" The legal battle took 3 months. Carol tried to fight initially, but when faced with the evidence and the threat of criminal prosecution, she crumbled. She signed documents withdrawing all claims to Mom's estate and admitting the fraud. In exchange, we agreed not to press criminal charges, a decision I sometimes question, but at the time, I just wanted it over. The house, the money, everything came back to me as Mom had intended. Carol and Richard filed for bankruptcy, lost their house, and moved to a smaller apartment across town. Their kids, my cousins, stopped speaking to me, believing I'd been cruel to their mother during a difficult time. That hurt, but I couldn't control their perspective. I haven't spoken to Carol in over 2 years now. Sometimes I drive past her old house and remember playing in that backyard, remember feeling safe and loved there. It's strange how places hold memories that no longer match reality. What Carol did changed me fundamentally. I learned that grief makes you vulnerable, and some people will exploit that vulnerability without hesitation. I learned that family doesn't always mean loyalty, and that blood doesn't guarantee love. Most painfully, I learned that the people you trust most can sometimes hurt you deepest. But I also learned I'm stronger than I thought. When faced with betrayal and theft, I didn't collapse. I investigated, gathered evidence, and fought for what was rightfully mine. I honor my mother's wishes and protected the legacy she'd worked so hard to build. I still live in Mom's house now. I've redecorated, made it my own, but kept her garden exactly as she maintained it. When I sit on the back porch in the evenings, I sometimes imagine her beside me, proud that I stood up for myself, proud that I didn't let Carol's greed erase her final gift to me. The money has been carefully invested. I think about what Mom would want me to do with it. She'd want me to be secure, to build a good life, maybe to help others who are struggling. She wouldn't want me to become cynical or closed off because of what Carol did. So I'm learning to trust again, slowly. I'm learning to let people in without immediately suspecting ulterior motives. It's hard. Every time someone is too helpful, too generous, I catch myself wondering what they really want. But I refuse to let Carol's betrayal turn me into someone suspicious and bitter. That would be letting her win in a different way. I've thought about reaching out to Carol, about seeking some kind of closure or reconciliation. But I'm not sure what that would accomplish. She never truly apologized. Her only regret seemed to be getting caught. How do you reconcile with someone who saw your pain as an opportunity? Maybe some relationships can't be repaired. Maybe some betrayals are too fundamental, cut too deep. I've made peace with the possibility that Carol and I will never speak again, that her kids will always believe I was the villain in this story. I can't control their narrative. I can only know my own truth. If there's anything I want people to take from my story, it's this. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, investigate. Don't let grief or love or loyalty blind you to red flags. And if you discover betrayal, don't be afraid to fight back. You deserve what's rightfully yours. You deserve truth, even when it's painful. My mother worked too hard and sacrificed too much for her legacy to be stolen. Every time I questioned myself, every time I wondered if I was being too harsh or suspicious, I thought about her hands, calloused from years of white-dressing, cramped from typing, gentle when she brushed my hair. She earned every penny she left me. Protecting that was the least I could do. Carol may have thought I was too young, too naive, too trusting to catch her scheme. She underestimated me the same way she underestimated Mom's foresight in keeping that journal. We both were stronger than she imagined. I won't pretend I've fully healed from this. Trust, once shattered, is incredibly difficult to rebuild. But I'm working on it. And I'm building a life Mom would be proud of, not just with her money, but with the strength and integrity she modeled every day. In the end, maybe that's the real inheritance she left me. Not the house or the money, but the example of how to live with dignity, how to fight for what's right, and how to love fiercely even when the world is cruel. Carol tried to steal my inheritance, but she couldn't steal the most important thing my mother gave me, the knowledge that I am worth fighting for. If this story resonated with you, we share powerful real-life experiences like this every week. Subscribe to stay connected to these important stories.